Is this me now?
Yeah, that means go.
Making Geeks is a podcast for people who are striving to find the balance between raising great kids and holding on to their creative passions that keep them completely sane.
Hello?
Isn't that where Sean goes?
Yeah, you lost your audio, Sean.
There we go. Yeah, that worked out great. Okay.
Oh!
All right, so you guys set?
All
Yeah.
set.
I thought that was me.
Nope. All right. Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Making Geeks podcast. We are the podcast for makers, dads, and geeks. Today, we have Mr. Josh Price with us.
Hi, everybody.
And Mr. Mark O'Keefe.
Hello.
Mr. Wes Swain.
Hello, world.
And today, we have another special guest with us. The man, the myth, the guy that everybody likes to blame, Mr. Andy Birkey.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey, good.
Doing good.
We've got a legend.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome back, buddy.
Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me. This is, I've been wanting to come on for a while. Honored to be here.
I think
Very
true
happy
believers
to
of the
have you.
show will know that this is your second appearance on the show.
That's true.
Have we had any repeat offenders on the show?
That's
Bob.
right. I forgot about that.
Bob's been,
Bob,
you
yeah.
and Bob Claggett are the only two repeat offenders
Hey,
to appear on the show.
I like that company. I can go there.
So how's everybody been doing this week?
Much, much better as of 25 minutes ago.
Is that because the diet bet's done?
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
too. That too. I'm very happy with the results of that thing. But I think I've avoided an $800 repair bill.
That would be
So,
awesome.
You got to
Yeah.
fill us in on that.
Yeah.
The Form 1 was printing sludge. Literally. We saw it when I was trying to print Josh's thing, and then it started giving me more issues with Wes's coin. And I printed some test pieces, and there was literally the entire build plate was like stuff, but was connected by a film on the bottom of a solidified film. And Formlabs told me that being that it's out of warranty, it's an $800 flat repair fee if I have to ship it to them. And no, for multiple reasons. The main one being there's no way I can afford that. So they told me, here's some instructions, take it apart, take the mirrors out, clean them, and hope for the best. So I just did all that today, cleaned the entire machine, ripped it all apart, put it back together. I did one test bit, and it turned out exceptionally well, except for one part, but I think I know why that happened. And I'm doing their laser optic test now, and hopefully that prints, and I'm good to go.
That's great news.
Yeah, I was scared to death that this thing was dying on me.
Is that like a in-depth maintenance thing that a lot of people will just do that most people don't know about, or what? Cleaning mirrors sounds kind of rudimentary, but
You'd think, but like there's 4 mirrors. The laser hits an X and Y mirror, so that's 2 mirrors. There's these 2 little mirrors, but they're not glass. They're like mirror on plastic, and there's galvo. So it's like think of your hand as the mirror, and one side is mirrored, and it's pointing to the other one, and then they both move like that to direct the laser. And then it hits another mirror that hits another mirror, and then that goes to the tank. So the 2 mirrors are fairly easy to get to. The other 2, I'm saying this completely wrong. Galvanometer, whatever.
Galifianakis.
Yeah, the Zach Galifianakis mirrors. They you have to take the back of the machine off, and then disconnect all the motors and the laser, and then wiggle that out, and then like everything that you read is like, be very careful, don't do nothing, you're going to break this if you do something wrong. So I'm just like,
But give it a little wiggle.
trying to clean it really, really gently.
What if you
I'm
just hit
seeing
it?
film on it, so I'm like, is that is that going to affect it? I don't know. Scrub a little more. Okay, it's gone, but now there's dust there. Oh, now there's condensation from my breath. Scrub it again. No, there's film there. It was back and forth, but it's I think I'm in the clear for the most part. So
that's cool that they gave you those instructions. Because I mean, with someone that's going to pay you or make you pay an $800 flat out fee.
That's true.
If they go, oh well, here, if you're handy and brave enough, you just do what we would do. Like that seems
they're
kind
a
of
little
surprising.
more forgiving with it because the printer is the one I have is end of life.
Oh, they don't care about it anymore. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's they want everyone to buy the new printer, so it's like, okay, well, if you screw this up, like the second they came out with it, they're like, oh well, because I called them up, I was like, hey, I just bought this thing and you just released the Form 2. Can I exchange it? And they're like, no, but we can give you $500 off another printer. I'm like, I don't have another $3,000. I just begged my wife to let me use the credit card for $35. So, but yeah, I plan on. I was going nuts. I was looking on what's the shady eBay site?
Napster.
No, for buying stuff.
Alibaba.
Alibaba, yeah. I was looking on AliExpress because I was going through the groups and they're like, "Oh yeah, that thing had knockoffs before it was even released because they never protected the stuff when they sent it to China." So I'm going on Alibaba and there is literally like 3 or 4 different printers that are exactly the same thing with their software, but it doesn't say Form Labs on the front of it.
Wow.
And I found like 2 or 3
Labs.
Yeah, Fom Labs, Arctech, yeah, all sorts of weird stuff. And I found a laser because the woman in the customer service was like, "Oh, okay, well, sometimes the lasers go bad on them," and I was like, "This is 2 years old, no." But I found that for $250. I was like, "All right, that's a less worst case scenario." So, but like I said, I think I'm in the clear. So, thank God. That's all I got. I'm done rambling. I tend to do that. I apologize. I know it.
How about you, Wes?
So Friday, I'll try to make it short. Friday, Grant was at his grandparents' and he like ran into the corner of the bed, like as he was running around it, and his left foot kind of stubbed and hit a caster wheel under the corner of the bed. Hard enough where he like cried longer than normal, apparently, but he still ended up going to take a nap and all that. I pick him up and he's kind of like hobbling around, and we're going camping that night, like all 4 of us. And Catherine's dad is a retired pediatrician, and he said he thought it might be broken, but he wasn't sure. Like just based like feeling it, like if it was his instinct was to like recommend an x-ray, but it's kind of thing like, well, just see if he gets better or whatever. I'm like, well, all right, we'll just see what it looks like the next day. And he was hobbling around a little bit less the next day. He wasn't complaining of it like hurting or anything. And then fast forward to Monday, he's like having trouble walking to the bus stop. Like he thinks he's not having any trouble, but his left foot is like turned inwards, and he's like tripping over his left foot, and it's just not ideal. And I bring him to his preschool, and he like runs around in the front before they open and like trips. Like after I put him down for like 4 steps, he trips and falls in the concrete and stuff. And so I made an appointment to bring him in after school, and he ended up he broke his foot basically.
Oh, his foot?
He broke his
his whole foot, not his toe.
He broke the metatarsal that's attached to the big toe. So it's the part of your foot that attaches directly to the toe, like
the
underneath.
thicker bone.
Yeah.
And that sucks because that's a growth plate for little kids. So it's.
They said it was in a good spot where it didn't affect that.
That's good.
Luckily, it's some sort of. They said the fracture. It's not like kind of like a pencil breaking. It's sort of like kind of compressed. It's like squished, kind of, because it's not as rigid as an adult bone. So it kind of shortened it a little bit. But they said that if I hadn't brought him in, he probably would have been all right after like a month. But they gave him like a hard-soled shoe, so he's like walking around, and we told him it's his Iron Man boot.
Nice.
So he's like, I got an Iron Man boot. He's like holding it up and stuff. He's like hobbling around
Nice.
like a pirate.
You know, Weston sounds like he needs a quick paint job to kind of match that.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they tape his toes together?
No.
No, it's just they just let it. Ooh. Huh.
Yeah, and he didn't complain. Like he went to the pediatrician before we got the X-ray, and she's like cranking on his foot. Sorry, he's cranking on the foot, and she's like moving all over the place. He's not complaining. And she's like, "Oh, does it hurt?" And he's like, "Yeah, a little." And he points to the other foot that she's not messing with. So he's like, his reliability is completely out the window. So, and she's like, "Well, you can get an X-ray just for peace of mind." I told her about my father-in-law, how his instinct was to get one. She's like, you can check it just to make sure. And we go over there to the other building, and yep, sure enough. She's like, wow, I wouldn't have guessed that, but because he didn't complain about any pain. And she said it was kind of amazing, actually, where it was broken. Now he's not even wincing. Like, she's like cranking on it. It's pretty cool. But had that. We took the dogs to the vet. It was just all kinds of stuff. Jack had like a tumor, apparently, growing on his thigh that they had to remove.
Jeez whiz.
Yeah, and it ended up being like malignant, but it's not one that can spread around to different parts of the body. It sort of stays localized. We just have to watch the area. I might have to remove it again, but he's got like tons of extra skin. He's sort of like a Shar-Pei that's not folded in a way. Like he's got like tons of skin. You just grab it and like stretch. He almost has like a lion's mane around his shoulders. If you stretch it over his head like a hoodie, it would like almost encapsulate his whole top of his head. It's quite hilarious, but
I think we need that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know, but that visual's seared into my mind right now.
But they said
Tattooed
when they
as
were putting him under to go to remove it, they had to put him to sleep, not permanently, mind you. They said his face was like the most like sad puppy dog eyes, like the big brown eyes. His ears went down really slow, and he looked super worried. The vet tech said that she had never seen a dog that was as pitiful and cute at the same time. So, yay! But yeah, that's
like,
mine.
oh, don't worry about it. Just grab his back fat and just flop it over his face. He's super cute.
Right.
It's a dog hoodie.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my weekend. Not great, but yeah. Here I am.
Wow.
How about you, Josh?
Oh, I don't know. No, we've been traveling all around. I don't remember where I was last time. This seems like an ongoing
I
theme.
think you're in Maine.
Okay, then we left Maine, headed
Or
back
New
down
York.
south
Not sure.
to New York.
Yeah.
We stayed, I guess in upstate New York, but it's the south part of New York. I think everything besides New York City is upstate New York. But we were a little south of Albany, near FDR's house. And so we went to Hyde Park on Hudson and toured the FDR Presidential Library. That was pretty cool. And now we are at my grandmother's house in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, hanging out here for a couple days before we head a little further back down south. So our trip is being heavily amended. So I have no news off the job interview thing we kind of leaked last week. As most people who are going into job interviews know that it's usually in flux. I get to like, well, it'll be this time, or like, oh, maybe it'll be around this time. Like, oh, I still got to talk to so-and-so. And so we got tired of waiting around for people. So we're going to keep on going.
Oh.
So, yeah, I think we'll be heading through Kentucky and somewhere else next. I don't know. It changes. That's kind of neat about being flexible is we have the time to change. But I've been taking care of a few customer orders. I think I'm going to get one mailed off tomorrow. So I had a CNC order that I did for a friend of mine back in the town we used to live in. It's Doc's Designs, a friend of mine that makes furniture out of his house. He's a pharmacist. So go check out Doc's Designs on Instagram. He makes good stuff. And what else? I discovered that the antenna, like the TV antenna on top of my RV, I must have ripped off somewhere after leaving Mark's place. And before getting to Tony Rouleau's place, my TV antenna snapped off somewhere. And so there's been like a pipe that has nothing attached to it on the top of my RV. And it's been raining, so I don't want rain to get in it. I'm amazed that rain hasn't leaked somewhere, so I 3D printed a little cap to solve that problem. So I had my robots all going the other day, which was kind of nice.
I saw that. Where is that? Where was the hole going to?
So in my kids' room, there's a little like directional knob. So it's like the over-the-air antenna. So just like the rabbit ears, like, but it's a digital antenna. So there's a little knob that you reach up and you can turn, and it has a little like LED system to let you know if the signal is, increased or decreased. And I wanted to watch a Notre Dame game the other day, and I was like, oh, well, the cable isn't working for whatever reason. I'm like, oh, I'll try the little antenna thing I haven't used in forever. And I just reached up and just kept spinning. I'm like, what's wrong with this piece of garbage? And I was like, oh, maybe the screw came unloose or something. So, like, I unscrewed it, and there's a little thing that came down, and then I wiggled the little bracket thing that was inside the RV, and I could see daylight, like, through some of the cracks. And I'm like,
not good.
what is happening? And so when I get up on top, like, I have got up on top of our house, and I've swept off the slides to make sure there's no, like, branches or twigs or whatever. And so, like, I've been up there. I have just never noticed that the big triangular, hell, it's probably like the size of your chest, thing is gone. And there's just like a broken pipe in its place. I've never noticed. We had to go back through like archived photos and like Instagram stories that save to your phone. Because every time we pick up and like we move out, we usually take a little quick thing. And that's how we determined like it had to be somewhere after the northern New Jersey and in between Tony Rouleau's house. Because like it was there and then it was not there. We don't know. And it wasn't an overpass because that's not like the tallest thing on the roof. So it had to have been a tree or something. I don't know. But I didn't want water damage or anything, so I used my 3D printer to print something functional and made a little protective cap to go on top of it until I care enough to fix it. So, yeah, weird things. Shawn, what about you, man?
I don't remember. It's been a busy week. It seems like I work roughly from like 7 to about 3:30 or 4, and then I come home, be with the family, and then I work another 3 or 4 hours at night, and that's been almost the whole entire last week. But I did finally get out to play around with my X-Carve last night and cut out my logo on the X-Carve, and I'm not sure I enjoyed the process because I have some settings that I need to fix and calibrate on the machine. I think I have some things set wrong, and I had to babysit the entire thing. It was cutting deeper than what I had set it. And instead of going back and trying to troubleshoot it right there, I just basically cut one letter at a time, stopped it, reset it, deleted that letter in easel, and then cut the next one. So I babysitted letter by letter as it cut, pulled out. And yeah, I'm sitting there watching it thinking I could probably cut this out faster on the bandsaw. And just really wondering, yeah, it's more precise. It did a pretty good job, but I don't know. I miss the tactile feeling.
Well, it's a learning curve.
Yeah, the trust is part of it too, and I'm not used to a robot doing the cutting for me. But I actually kind of miss the tactile nature of it and kind of being in the zone. And instead, I'm sitting down watching somebody else do all the work or something else doing all the work. It was weird. It's something I have to get used to.
That's kind of an interesting observation right there that I hadn't really thought about. But the tactile, sensory involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And it's not like I think I would have done a better job at cutting it out because my skills are questionable at best. It's just I think I enjoy the process so much of work with my hands because I'm already in front of the computer in front of students all day that I kind of like the idea of going out there and doing something physical. So it'll take some time to get used to. Definitely.
And even going from like 3D printing software to that, it's definitely a lot harder because I've tried to figure out, I've had the same thing. It starts cutting too deep or it starts doing weird stuff. And I'm looking at what I see on the screen and I'm like, okay, that depth, everything should be right. Why are you doing what you're doing? I'm not telling you to do that.
And I had another really weird experience with it too, because I was cutting out my logo. My logo has only existed in 2 dimensions since I designed it like 3 years ago. And as it's cutting out in, real form, like in a physical form, I'm thinking I might need to redesign this a little bit because the way I designed it, it doesn't translate the exact same way. There's some issues with the design that I have. So it was definitely an interesting experience yesterday. Yeah. And how about you, Mr. Birkey?
Boy, this one, probably the funnest thing. I'm working on a grandparents have me making them a big frame, a maple frame for basically it's going to be a mirror, but it's surrounded by 26 tiles, ceramic tiles that have been each one painted by one of the grandkids.
That's cool.
And
that's nice.
yes, so it's cool. And it's neat because I don't know if you guys have seen me use. I use this die. It's basically the same process that Steinway uses on their pianos to get that black without covering up any of the grain of the wood. So I'm using the maple, and then it's going to go dead black with a nice cherry surround around the outside of it. But structurally, it's weird because there's a lot of weight that I got to deal with, and yet try to keep it visually pretty light. So that's kind of the challenge of that one. So I'm doing that one, and then I'm working on my buddy's headboard, which is a Gothic window sort of deal. That's kind of a fun deal that we're actually integrating some RGB LEDs into the back side of it. So each line of the tracery on the back side has a groove that the lines of LEDs go in there. And so you shouldn't, even when you're laying with your head right next to the headboard, you shouldn't be able to see any actual lights.
That's cool.
I think it's going to be pretty cool.
So will it have glass in it at all?
No. It's
so
just
that'll kind of like mimic the idea of stained glass,
right?
Like projected onto the wall.
Yep, it'll bounce off the wall surface. The actual tracery, which is all the fancy stuff, basically in a Gothic window, is probably about 1.25 inches off of the wall. So you just get that light bounce. So it's kind of cool. We've done a couple mock-ups with the LEDs, and at that distance, it bleeds out into each one of the negative spaces about 2 or 3 inches, and then creates the shape again in light in the middle of the frame. Does that make any sense?
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's kind of a cool concept that we've kind of just evolved on the fly. It's been a lot of fun, the two of us.
Was that the picture that you posted either today or yesterday that it barely fit in your shop?
Yeah, it doesn't fit in shop.
That thing is awesome looking.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's been a fun. It's been a really cool kind of fusion. My friend Zach is he's the engineer in basically a television studio for a large company, and so he brings in a ton of experience from that end of things, and so it's kind of fun to fuse the two worlds together, and I think we're going to come out with something pretty cool.
Very cool.
And speaking of fusing the two worlds together, that was a perfect segue, man. It's like you've been doing this forever. That kind of leads us into our topic. But first, before we get to that was a good segue. We got to put that right there. For those of you who may not know who Andy Birkey is, like, you really should. This needs to be a name that you're familiar with, and it needs to be a name that you use as an adjective, a noun, and a verb in most cases.
Or a curse word.
Or a curse word, yeah. So, Andy, give us the nickel tour, man. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, I'm kind of an older school guy. I'm 55 years old. I started out as a carpenter back in the day. I made fun of my friends in Seattle who were going into computers in 1981, and I thought that they were absolute fools. And I decided a much better career path would be to be a carpenter. So I started out in this journey of making almost 35 years ago now, and I've worked outside the country and all over the U.S. and it's really been good to me, and here I have found myself kind of thrust into specializing in Gothic churches, amongst other things. But but I've done several neo-Gothic Catholic churches that have taken up to 2.5 years was probably my biggest project. And so, it's kind of an interesting deal because, like I say, I cheat. Every when I'm on one of those big projects like that, every day is cheating and hacking because you're trying to do way old school traditional craft work, and then you're trying to hack it to make it even remotely affordable for a modern day, sensibility. And it's a trip. It's way interesting, but it drives you to distraction. That's for sure. So yeah, I was kind of almost burnt out and was really just doing shop work as a way of paying the bills until about 3 or 4 years ago I started getting involved with your community, and it's really reinvigorated my reminded me how lucky I am to do what I do, to work with my hands and to hang out and be exposed to guys like you guys, and it's really cool as a quote unquote older guy, middle-aged guy, to be able to share a passion and a reinvigoration of craft in my world through you guys.
Well, this maker community, I mean, you are a staple in this maker community, and it's awesome. I mean, for someone who is not a true craftsman, right? That I know all of us, we have our little hobby shops. We get out, we make cool things, and we're growing and we're learning and we're experiencing. But to watch you do the things that you do, it's just you stop. And when I see the church stuff you do, right? The Catholic Church. So for those of you who haven't seen Andy's work, think of the most opulent, beautiful, like ornate things in a Catholic church setting, and wonder, like, where did that come from? Like, how did they make that thing? Andy Birkey made that thing. Like, and that still blows my mind. And so the topic that we kind of went with today was, with us being so robots and 3D printers, CNC kind of get to the end result using some technology, or in our cases, a lot of technology. And with Andy bringing a very traditional sense of skill set, and like his projects are just extremely traditional. Like, how do you see yourself as the mediator between the two communities, as the new hipster robot farm and the old school like chisel and mallet like guild?
Exactly. I think you're spot on. It's I see myself as sort of a hacker, and I go into those situations, and I am pulling out every possible trick in the book to make it, number one, affordable, number two, to make it buildable, to make it affordable, and to be able to convince the people with the money that it can be done, which is a lot of times the hardest thing. But no matter what angle you're coming at it from, a classic example that I've used is to be able to carve one piece by hand, to actually do the chisel and mallet mafia deal, and make a single piece. And then, like back in the day, back in the late 90s, to contact Smooth On, molding and casting company, and learn this skill of how to, make either cold cast plastics or statuary hydrocal, to use all these different substances. And the way I remember it, I don't know if this is accurate, but the way I remember it is a lot of the Smooth On technologies and stuff that they were using came out of the movie Jurassic Park. They were really a lot of those prosthetics, and I just remember the what was the dinosaur where he freaked it out on the side of his head? Yeah, all that kind of stuff was kind of
the Dilophosaurus.
That's it.
Might be it. Yep. So at that time we were kind of pushing, especially bringing that into traditional craft work. I know there are some people that were kind of going, I don't know, but on the other hand, it made what things that we were building buildable, because no one's going to pay me 10 years 15 years to build a big altarpiece the traditional way anymore. That's just that was pretty cool in the 1500s, but not now. So it's a hack job.
So Michelangelo would have to get out his inkjet printer to finish the rest of the Sistine Chapel.
And and I'm of the school that I think if some of those guys had the tools that we have now, they would be using them because they're available. And I don't, for me personally, I just don't have a problem with integrating everything I can get my hands on to make my work more affordable and repeatable.
I think you brought up a really interesting point in talking about Jurassic Park and the use of like the smooth on products to do casts of all these sculpts, because they probably, before that was really possible, they would have had to make just several sculptures of possibly the same thing and animate
plaster
like maquettes. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's, in a sense, that's kind of maybe almost the start of the modern era of replication, of making the same thing over and over again. And then kind of like what you were saying, where there's some people that are so purist that don't like that idea, but it helps get the job done. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I appreciate the purist mentality of it, but the way I kind of look at it is, if what I build is not affordable to do it the pure way, is it really a bastardization of it if how I do it makes it so that it can be built? Because if we're not hacking the heck out of it, it can't be built. So,
and possibly that work of art or whatever would possibly cease to exist in a way. Like if no one takes on that job of repairing that, thing that's been around for several hundred years or whatever, it's going to get thrown in the garbage, and then the legacy of those original makers is sort of tossed away as well. So you're sort of preserving their work and try to remain as invisible as you can to let their stuff still show, right?
Exactly. That's one of the things I've always said is, the highest compliment to our work, my work, is that if no one knows I was ever there.
Yeah.
So we had one where it was an odd deal where a lady wandered in, and I just overheard her saying while we were working on some things, and she looks up at one of the altars that we had built, and she said, "It's just so nice that they never tore this out of here." And we had just put it in the week before.
No way. Really?
Nice.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
It was pretty cool.
Well, see, I always thought, like, in the argument between the purists and the digital tools, that, I mean, it's still coming from your mind. So in the end, does it matter how it gets made as long as it gets made?
My thing is the creative brain, the creative mindset to me is the most important thing. I mean, one of the things I get asked a lot is, what's your favorite tool? And I know what people are asking, but the reality of it is, it's my mind. So it's really, I completely agree that, I'm not really that, if it looks right, it is right. I think somebody said that, right? I think
I think I said that. Yeah.
Shall I invoke the name of Jimmy DiResta or just leave it alone?
That's always been the thing I've tried to figure out. Who's the patron saint and who's who's the prophets, who's the gods, or is it just one big huge group?
Yeah, I think so.
Polytheism.
Who am I praying to when my project goes sideways?
I think to the flip side of the purists being convinced that digital tools are okay, like you talked earlier, like you're in cahoots, if you will, or you're supposed to get a shaper. Right?
Yes.
For those people who don't know the shaper, it's the handheld CNC that kind of looks like a router. So it is a flat up like digital tool, right? So do you think, because it hasn't been delivered yet, do you think it's going to be harder, or is you're going to fall back to just like, I'll just go make it, rather than having to lay out like the digital tape and having to create the G code or the file and then send it to the thing? Because the act of getting the robots to work, like once you hit that point, you've done a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
To where there's a lot of times I'm like, this would be so much faster if I could just do X, or if I just had this skill, not necessarily this piece of technology. Or it would be way quicker if I just had a blank and blank, rather than me, trying to recreate a cross section and then extrude it out and then turn that into an STL file and so on. So how do you feel that this new piece of technology is going to like help what it is that you're already really, really good at doing?
In one word, it would be repeatability. If I can take a Gothic arch shape and be able to squish it sideways or increase the size or manipulate it, not have to lay out each individual one, because a lot of Gothic architecture is just repeating themes. There's, Gothic arches, these things called trefoils, quatrefoils, these things that are, if you walk into any church in Europe, you'll see these 5 or 6 shapes over and over and over in different iterations. And for me, that's kind of the big deal, is let's get those shapes figured out, and then they can just be manipulated and used in different ways. So that's the biggie. The other thing for me is in circular work, by hand, getting a curve that's faired, that actually is right visually and feels right, is one of the hardest things in the world. Where if I can get a faired curve, immediately, then that's a huge. Even if I just make the curve and then manipulate it by hand, I feel like I'm going to be using this thing half as it's designed and half the way that I'm comfortable with it. So, the thing that I'm real excited about it is Sean was saying earlier about the tactile involvement in the handwork that couldn't be missing from like a bedded CNC, where this is kind of a hybrid between those two things, where you still have the CNC accuracy, but yet you have an involvement with the machine. And those listeners that don't know the Shaper Origin, basically it has a forward-looking camera and gives you a GPS type of map of where you're going, and then you just keep it in an area of like about an inch, and the machine on its XY axis does the fine tuning of your gross motor movements of your arms.
Takes the slop out.
Yeah, it's basically kind of like being a robot, which I'm okay with. It's exciting. So I'm very excited to get it in my hands, and I've been working a bit with the company I think they're curious to see how an old school guy is gonna adapt to it. So I've been talking with them a little bit, and it'll be fun to see where it goes for sure.
Nice.
I think you're a perfect test case for this too, because you would really put it through its paces, as opposed to a hobbyist just doing small little experiments. You have real work for this thing.
Yeah, I've got a couple of ideas of some stuff I want to build with it, like straight away, and yeah, if all things being equal, I think it could be a game changer for me. As a matter of fact, that's the word that I remember using. Wes and I were at Maker Faire, Wes, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we were talking to Jimmy DiResta, and the subject of this machine came up, and basically Jimmy drug us physically across the grounds about a quarter of a mile to go see this thing. And we laid eyes on it, and it was like, yeah, that's a game changer. Just knew it instantly. So it was, I just remember looking at Wes and just slack-jawed, just going, oh my God.
So to kind of round out the conversation a little bit, the starting idea for this topic came out of a TEDx talk that kind of made the rounds on the internet about a week ago. And the gentleman who was giving the presentation defined himself or labeled himself as a craftsman, and who makes his living with his hands, in a very tactile way. And he brought about a very serious concern, at least from his point of view, about the growth and use of automation for making products, and making products at a lower price. And brought up the idea of, when things are sold now, should it actually have a label that says how it was made? Was this machine made? Was this handmade? Where was it made? So that people could possibly have a better idea of what they were actually buying. But from his point of view, it was more of the idea of to care more about handmade things, because he wants, it would probably come down to people paying more money for something that's handmade, as opposed to something made in a factory or, repeated with a machine. And wondering what everybody's response was, is there any validation in what he's saying, or is he basically doing his, I guess I'll put my 2 cents in when I say it this way. I think that he was doing his audience a disservice with that presentation of what's going on, but we'll see what everybody else says.
See, I can kind of compare this to the way I look at like art in general. Take for me, I don't particularly care if it's original or like if it's a painting. It's the picture. It is the colors and what you have in your visual that is what's important in when I'm looking at a painting. I don't care if it's, a poster or the real thing.
Your computer just fart and then hit a symbol?
What was that?
That
was awesome.
I apologize. Some stupid thing that played in the background on something. I apologize.
Uh-huh.
Thank goodness we could edit that out.
Uh-huh.
Why?
Anyway, what Cliff Notes, for me personally, unless it's like a physical sculpture or something like that, I don't particularly care if it's the hand-created thing or a recreated thing, as long as it is what's giving me that feeling that, whatever it's designed to do, And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe there's more nuanced ways of looking at it, but for me, that's kind of what it boils down to. So if something is mass produced or if it is handmade, in the end, I really don't care as long as it's not a gigantic piece of crap. Like, it could be a mass produced thing, but if I could run it over with a steamroller and it's still what it is afterwards, then yeah, I reproduce a million of them. It's made well. In the end, that's what I care about. It's reproduced or handmade. It kind of doesn't matter to me.
I would tell that guy Was he wearing blue jeans by chance in his TED Talk?
I think he was.
I think he was actually.
Okay. Ask him how much he paid for those blue jeans. Did he pay 150 euro for those blue jeans, or did he pay about 30 bucks? Because it's the same story. We lived in Europe like denim, a thing that most Americans take for granted. It's a piece of cotton, right? It's cotton. You wear it every day. You can go buy it at Walmart for cheap. That costs so much money because it's, exported. But you think of all the consumer goods that you get now, that stuff is made. It's made overseas. It's made in the factory downtown. But it gets shipped to you. It's not hand-stitched by a lady in a loom because you wouldn't be able to afford it. So if you want your stuff out there, then you have to make concessions. And so when you go to the Louvre, are they going to now put a big sticker on the Louvre that says this is the original? Just so people know that that's the real one, not some other one. So I think it's based on your market. When I was in Georgia, like I can hand make a table. I can hand make a beautiful table. And someone could look at it and go, that's beautiful. And then go to Walmart and they can look at that Chinese like plastic veneered particle board, or go to IKEA. That's how IKEA exists, right? It's cardboard. But they're going to buy that because, just like Mark, you're saying, it's aesthetically pleasing and it's at their price point. They go, but it's not handmade by me. You should buy it from me because I had a hammer. And it's old because it used to be a barn. Like, some people don't care. And so I can put my sticker on there, and I could make that point, and I could shout my own handmade praises to the empty masses, because people are going to spend money on things that they find value in. And so whether or not it has a made in the USA sticker, which is great, and some people really value that, and some people don't care because they go to work every day and they come home and they pay their bills and they want a table. So they're going to go to the store that can get them a table. And if someone will build them a table out of, like what Keith Deason's doing, right? He said that he tore down a factory, used the beams from that factory in the apartments that the factory used to be in. Like, that has a story. So you're not only buying the handmade element, you're buying the lineage and the story behind it.
Right.
Or I can go, I bought this at Target, and it was modeled after a table that I made from a beam in an old factory. And goes, oh, that's awesome. It still has the same fake makeup story, but at a quarter of the price. Like, that's a win for your customer. And so you can stand on your podium all day long and try to influence the mass market to do your bidding, but try to get them to, like Andy, like you were talking about, like, it's people's wallet. You can stand there and go, like, Father, I am going to make this church after the greatest architects in all of Europe. I've studied there for years. I've known all of their techniques. I was part of the guild. Michelangelo's great-great-great-grandson taught me how to make this thing, and I will reproduce it exactly the way you want it. And it's going to be this much money, and I'll put a sticker on it that says I made it by hand. And I go, well, we can't afford that. So then you just shut your mouth and walk out. And no one is any better for that. So that's my case, is you have to feel out the people that you're with. If you want to put that sticker on there at a craft fair, just to try to get people's head and maybe get you a couple, like, consolation points to edge you out over Target. But I heard that JoJo from the House Flipper show is going to have some line at Target, so anybody who makes any tables is going to have a long line out at Target, and all your wives are going to be spending money at that place because JoJo, the House Flipper lady, is going to be making new Target products. So you can print out all the handmade stickers you want.
My name's on it. It must be good.
Yeah.
Well,
I know that even when I made things by hand, I was still poor. I still didn't sell stuff.
Look at Wes. He's thinking. Wes is thinking.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's
I'm so
gears
torn on
turning.
this. Yeah. Because I can see both sides, and I have, like, a lot of different thoughts on different parts of it. It's hard to congeal down into one thing. But when you're talking about, like, handmade things, the first thing that comes to mind for myself is I like to collect things. This is not, news to anybody. I have different sorts of things. And one thing in particular that I have made, like, a point is I'm really into, like, Disney animation cells. And if I'm on eBay and I'm looking through all the listings to look for a new animation cell of a character from a show that I like or a movie or whatever, I would like the original one that was actually used in the production of that piece, just because it has history behind it, and I, enjoy that, to know that I have a part of the making of something that I really enjoy and really cherish as a kid. And so if I find out that something that I bought is like a knockoff, I'm going to be kind of pissed. I don't know, like a lot
But
of...
doesn't it give you, I mean, looking at it, doesn't it give you that same rush of memory, that same nostalgic feeling and the warm fuzzy feeling of sitting down when you were little watching that cartoon?
If
Yeah,
I
but
know
that-
that it's
that
a
doesn't scratch that.
facsimile, it doesn't do anything for me.
And it's where you put that value. You
Yeah.
put that value not only in looking at the thing, because
Yeah.
you can pull up a Google image and look at the thing. That is the original, that association to
Yeah.
that actual piece. It's authenticity.
Yeah. I go for the
I
authenticity
think-
for some reason. Not everybody does, but it depends on what it is.
And I think this is kind of, that word authenticity is what this particular guy
Mm-hmm.
was kind of trying to get at. But I thought he did a real disservice to the digital tools, for instance, because he was saying, I remember he used the word, that somebody can just punch a few keys and spit out 1,000 of these. And I thought that was really disrespectful. And I'll be honest, for years and years, I avoided woodworking communities and woodworkers in general because of this very type of attitude, that it was this sort of my way of, the depth of mortise that I make is way superior to yours that's only, an 1/8 of an inch shallower than mine. Therefore, I'm quite sure that I'm pretty awesome. You know what? I go back to one thing for me personally, and that the Frank Lloyd Wright said that have nothing in your house that you do not feel is beautiful. And to me, that's kind of a litmus test. Obviously, we have utilitarian things in our houses, but if all things being equal, I enjoy having original stuff in my house. I have one of Kyle Toth's 100 vases that he's made. I was thinking about it the other day. It is probably one of the, how people were grabbing things out of their houses running from the hurricane. I would grab that Kyle Toth vase. I really would, because it's that incredible of a piece. Now, would I do my whole house in those? I can't do that, financially. But, that's, to me, I would like to see people have less stuff and cooler stuff. And as that pushes towards the aesthetics, I see where we're going with the aesthetics. If the aesthetics are there, I mean, you got to give IKEA credit. And I remember, I've only been in an IKEA store one time in my life, but I remember walking in and thinking it was just going to be a train wreck, and looking around and going, you know what? There's a lot of really good design work in this stuff. Really good. Now you start looking at it, the construction is it is what it is. They're not trying to fool anybody. And I think that was another point this guy was trying to make, don't you, Sean? That, he was really calling for an honesty of process. And I have no problem with that at all. I mean, people want to say that, our work, my work is, mastercraft or whatever. I see it as being very honest about how much I cheat. Because that's what I do, and I do that unapologetically, quite frankly. So,
yeah, I think the guy was primarily speaking from a point of, it may not be entirely fair to say this, but almost like a selfish point of view, because he's worried about his own livelihood. because the replication and mass production still does have a place. Maybe the honesty of how it was made or where it came from. Maybe there's a place for that too. But I really like the quote you brought up about was it Frank Lloyd Wright? But don't have anything in your house you don't find beautiful. I think that's kind of a really good notion too. Whether it's an animation cell, whether it's a handmade piece of furniture, or just something you kind of take some sort of pride in, and maybe just that mentality itself would transform a lot of things.
Yeah,
I agree. I will tell you this: I also have something in my house that, my T-Rex skull that Wes 3D printed for me. I think it's beautiful, so it's in my house. You know what I mean? I think it's I think that's the litmus test is, as you can have, if we were bazillion years, yeah, I'd get Kyle Toth over here for a year and set him up with everything and crank out the inside of my house, but that's not going to happen.
yeah. I guess you kind of jog something in my mind. Like, I like to have things that have a story behind them, I guess, when it comes down to it. Like,
Yep.
I don't have any pieces of art in my house that I just bought from a store and hung up because I thought the thing looked cool, because it doesn't have a story. That wasn't my intention, but looking back, everything that's hung up on my walls, it's either a photo of someone that is important to me that obviously has a story, or it's the animation cell because it has a story. Someone did, blah, blah, made this. It was on this episode and everything. And I have one other thing. It's like a 72-inch wide panoramic shot of a crater from Mars that I got from JPL when I toured there, which is pretty awesome. Sure, you might be able to get that same thing as a print or, lithograph or whatever from a gift shop, but it actually came off of a printer that was in like the imaging department from JPL that was sent, all this stuff. So it's got some, like I say,
Nice.
authenticity, some history, some story. And I guess that's sort of been one of my unsaid rules. I guess I didn't even really think about it, but if I'm going to hang it up on my wall, it's got to have something meaningful behind it. And just a neat thing to look at, I guess.
So I think I'm wired differently a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, because like for me, it's like I'll just stuff
Oh.
garbage art, and it's garbage art because I pulled it out of the garbage. I got the thing I made, and it's like for me, it's all visual. Like the visual cues trigger stuff in my head. It's not necessarily like what Wes was saying. It has that story behind it. Excuse me. It's I look at it and it triggers a memory, or it triggers just a good feeling, or I look at it and go, or that's still cool, and
that's what art's supposed to do, though.
That's always what it's been for me. Like I have I gotta find it because I think we lost it in the move. There's a painting. It's like kind of Arthurian legend. It looks like it could go in those. It's like a knight kneeling and being knighted by a woman, and then there's two other pictures that go with it. And I've always loved that painting. And Tracy,
I know that painting. Yeah,
she bought me a poster of. There's actually three of them. There's three different scenes, and I gotta find that again and put it up because it's just one of those things. Like I don't care that it's not the original. It's still the thing that I look at and I like looking at. It looks cool. It makes me happy to see it. And that's pretty much what I was getting at before. Like original or not, when it comes to art, I just the visual is what gets me, not necessarily the originality of it. And when it comes to like physical pieces, like I wouldn't choose IKEA over anything, but I might steal like Andy said, I might steal some of their designs and make it myself. So you can't kill it,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna. I don't know how it fits in, but my mind keeps going back to this too. Is that in Target they have this in the housewares area where they have like dishes and things. They have a platter, like a serving platter, that is maybe like a 1.5 wide. It's a circular platter, and it looks exactly like a slab from a slice from a tree. Like it has bark all the way around it.
That's like it's a cookie.
They have rings. Yeah, it's a cookie, and I'm pretty sure it's fake. Like it looks really real. It looks like it has real bark on it that sort of looks super glued on the outside. Like, should there be something on there that says it's not real? Like, I'm tempted to get it and like run it through my table saw to see what's inside. Like, I really want to do that, but it's a hard time for me to spend like $20 on this platter that it sort of goes
You're just
against
gonna
my.
kill.
Yeah, exactly. But it might make for an interesting video. But I don't know. It says
Isn't
like,
that a
wooden
skill in and of
platter.
itself? Like if
To make
you
it look
don't
real?
know,
Maybe, I don't know.
if you can't tell, is it
art
still?
GMO? I don't know.
You know what bugs me about those is the craftsmanship on the fake is so bad.
Yeah.
But that goes back to value.
Yeah.
And Target has that stuff on the shelves because people buy it. And they're not buying it because some bearded lumberjack sold it in a stand on the side of the road. And it was like, I cut this with this axe here. And they're like, oh my God, that's so one-off and so original.
I just want
Like,
them
they
to fool
bought
me
it-
better.
Well, they bought it because it looks nice, or they have a place for it in their house. And I don't remember.
You
Like,
could also
my whole
use Target as a test bed. You know, how much are they selling that plate for? $20? Go get a log and cut it up. Sell it for 15. There you go. I'm cheaper than Target.
You know, I swear one of the heads at Target watches like all the Dresta videos and it just says, "Oh, that's popular now. We're gonna do that."
And they have like the
I'll bet that's
distressed
true.
games now for like all the. They have like Stratego and like Monopoly and all these things that look like they're made out of pallet wood. Have you seen these in Target?
Yes.
Yes.
It's
And then Home
bad.
Depot, they have like the fake, I don't know what you call it, like
No, they have the distressed
screen-printed-
pallet wood tiles.
that too. And they also have like a big panel, looks like it's screen printed pallet
Mhm.
wood or barn wood.
Wow.
It's like, the 1/8-inch thick looking. It looks like linoleum, but it's
Yes.
this fake looking wood.
So
Can you not afford a barn to rip down to tile your floors with?
And it's cheaper, so I don't know. They're going for a certain look, and that's what the person wants. It's just some of it's sort of full circle beyond a point of like
Yep.
logic. I don't know.
Right.
Because they're going to watch a TED Talk and they're going to see a picture of a table that guy made out of barnwood. And they go, I tore
Yep.
this thing down. I put all this handwork in it. This table is $1,000. They're going to go, whoa, I like that. I like IKEA's designs. I don't have $1,000 to buy the barnwood thing, so I need to have something that is cheaper to recreate the look of that. Because, like you're saying, all they want is the look. Or they don't have the money and they just physically can't pay for it. So they're going to find a cheaper substitute. And that cheaper substitute is a linoleum piece of MDF or the cardboard furniture at IKEA because that's what they can afford.
My local Lowe's in the Home and Garden Center, they actually had a legitimate pallet for sale for like $10. And it had like a book for pallet wood projects. I'm not kidding. There beside it, all right, that was like $15. They had like this whole little thing display, and then you go around. After you buy this thing, you go around the back of Lowe's on the way out, and you see like a stack of pallets behind in the
Hey,
warehouse.
look, free ones.
So I mean, it's just capitalizing on the interest. I understand. It's just funny.
It's so funny.
Well, I'll say this. I just had this thought about the TED Talk guy is I will probably always be first and foremost a handwork type of, that's my, birthright, whatever you call it.
Forte.
Yeah, forte, right. But I will not be held hostage by my own craft. And I will reserve the right to evolve, and evolution at this point in our existence means we're going to start integrating digital tools, and I will do that, like I say, unapologetically and enthusiastically. So the dinosaurs didn't evolve. It didn't work out real well for them. So
They had the stickers, though, because they were the OG dinosaurs.
old school.
93 octane dinosaurs.
So what are you guys geeking out about this week?
I just brain farted. Someone else go.
How was that smell?
Smells like burned rubber.
I am geeking out over Zelda, Breath of the Wild. I have never gotten into any video game. And between Wes and my wife, I am now obsessed with this stupid game. I was walking on a driveway today with a handful of tools, and there was a cricket going across the road. And my first thought, knee-jerk reaction, was that it was a restless cricket from Zelda. It was like,
collect it. I need this.
I am so sick. I'm being taken over by geekdom.
Just let it happen, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's like a warm blanket. You'll be quoting Star Wars in no time.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I have Wes and my wife to blame for that. So.
Speaking of Star Wars, I am actually geeking out about J.J. Abrams taking over Episode 9 of Star Wars. He's been getting, I know, and that's the reaction of a lot of people. A lot of people aren't really that happy about it. And I know that maybe JJ's style and writing might leave a lot to be desired, but I think it'll be stable at the very least with him at the helm. Otherwise, I mean, who knows what's going to happen. And I still care about this franchise, at least through Episode 9. After that, I may not care anymore. But, you know, I have a vested interest in this last part of the trilogy finally getting done. I've been dreaming of this since I was about 5 or 6 years old after Return of the Jedi came out. I wanted to know the rest of the story. I know this is probably not how the story was supposed to happen according to Lucas, but at least it's something. So I am definitely geeking out about that. How about you, Josh?
I have no idea. This has been a particularly stressful week. So I haven't had a lot of time to seek out things that have been overly exciting or all-encompassing. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm happy that I got my 3D printer working.
Okay.
Well, I got my 3D printer working. I guess I had an SD card issue, and so it's just been sitting there. And I downsized my shop, which sounds kind of crazy. But yeah, I have a shop that's smaller than your bathtub, and I was able to declutter things and get rid of stuff that I didn't want.
You really need to come to my shop.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of who I am, though. I don't know. I don't like a lot of clutter, and so I try to boil things down and make things better. And Adam Savage, I was trying to watch the video that he put out recently, his DeWalt sponsored one about the stuff he was making for his bathroom and how 25% of his shop time is him just making his shop more efficient. Well, that's what I've been doing recently. I needed to get out. I needed to go make some stuff recently, and I went back, and it's just my tiny little area has just been cluttered full of garbage, and it's been awesome. I've been meeting a lot of people, and they've been giving me chunks of wood or this little thing, or, oh, this is neat, you need to have this. And so it's just been kind of accumulating. So I turned a couple new pins out of some beautiful wood I got from Tim Sway. Some stuff that I've had back there that's just I've jerry rigged in place to stay kind of put. I made some stuff to actually hold it in place properly. So I took probably an entire garbage bag, which I could probably fit 3 entire garbage bags in my shop as a whole. So one of those was full of just stuff that didn't need to be there anymore. And I decluttered my itty bitty tiny shop. So it is possible to look around and find stuff you don't need even when you barely have anything. What about you, Wes?
I'm geeking out about a couple things. First one's real quick. This weekend, when this episode comes out, I'm going to be in Virginia Beach for a air show where the Blue Angels will be, so I'm always looking forward to that. We go every year for the last many years. Bringing Samantha, Grant, Catherine, and another family that's local to me here. They haven't been to one that I know of, so, and they have some little kids that are coming with us, so that should be fun. And the other thing is kind of definitely geeky. It's sort of celebrating and reflecting on the mission, the Cassini mission that's been around Saturn for a long time. It launched before Catherine and I got married. It launched before I graduated high school, in '97.
Wow.
And it was en route for like almost 7 years, and it's just done a lot of cool stuff. And they're actually, by the time this comes out tomorrow, on the 15th, they are targeting it to basically burn up in the atmosphere of Saturn in order to prevent it from contaminating another body, instead of letting it revolve, to orbit around Saturn forever and possibly get deflected and contaminate some other moon or something that has a possibility of life. They are intentionally destroying it to save that possibility, which is kind of poetic in a way and kind of neat. So they're basically streaming data until its last
As it goes
breath.
down.
Yeah, and when we see
A
it,
live execution.
but it was live, but it isn't, because by the time we see it, it'll be an hour and a half after it actually happened, because that's how long the signal takes from Saturn to get to Earth. So it's sort of a mind trip. It's crazy.
Still pretty fast.
Very fast, but very far, considering how
Yeah.
fast light is. But it's kind of neat. So it's bittersweet. So I'm watching all the little documentaries and stuff that NASA and JPL and the Goddard Space Flight Center has been putting out. It's kind of cool.
Very cool stuff.
Mark, you got anything?
Well, I'm geeking out over Progress right now, and a new Metroid game. So
Sort of new.
sort of, yeah. I mean, I always liked Metroid. Metroid was always one of my go-tos, but I've been getting a bit farther in some of my designs. I'm been designing a case or an enclosure for my plastic 3D printer, and once I finish that, I'll do the X-Carve, and then I'll be able to start fine-tuning that. So it's just, I'm happy with slow progress.
Progress breeds motivation.
Yes.
Sweet.
Well, we would love to hear from all of you. Please visit makinggeeks.com, check out the contact page, and drop us a line. We'd love to hear any questions or suggestions you have for the show. In fact, we did get an email last week from somebody named Jacob Brooker, and we appreciate that email. He played along with the Beat the Geek game and did pretty well too. So thanks for that email, and we hope to be getting a lot more. Go ahead and visit the homepage where you could look at and listen to all the past episodes right there on makinggeeks.com.
And you can find all of our social medias on Instagram at Making Geeks Podcast, on Twitter and Facebook at Making Geeks.
I would like to thank our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/makinggeeks. It's through your financial support and viewers like you that it keeps the show on the air and keeps us motivated with your support. So we want to thank you guys, especially our number one patron, top patron as usual, Mr. Seth Williams. If you'd like to dethrone Mr. Seth from his mighty altar he's been on, feel free to go over to patreon.com/makinggeeks and make it happen. There's some cool perks over there.
Seth is actually the skinnier Seth, because he was on the diet bet. If you're listening to this, the diet bet is now over.
Congratulations to everyone.
Some people still have to weigh in, Mr. Swain.
It's so close.
Give me your money now if you want.
I will.
You're down to a couple hours, man. You got to get that thing in.
I just weighed in and I barely made it.
Oh,
Good job. Good job.
We'll see. I got like almost
I was
24 hours left.
I got upset because I submitted my final photo, and I was like, all right, I can have a real dinner. I had a real dinner, and then I get, your photos were rejected. I was like, oh no! and I gained another
Finger down the
pound
throat.
back, and I was like, oh, I didn't win, but I didn't finish it where I wanted to.
I'll bet you Wes is going to be cutting weight like a boxer.
Sean said he was going to mainline X-Lax before.
It has not been pretty here.
That's
It's
not
been a
right.
horrific South Park episode. Wes, you just
Andy
gave me a
Man working,
flashback
everybody.
to PBS.
I know that was intentional.
And viewers like you. Wait, what?
Thank you.
So Andy, man, where can everybody find your work?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Andy Birkey, Birkey. Just look for Seymour Make Better, the little bald-headed icon. He's everywhere. So
He'll be featured in our social media this week.
And blameberkey.com, I believe.
Truth. Yeah,
There you go.
BlameBirkey.com. Thanks to Mr. Wes Swain, who invented or did the bare bones site while I was on a broadcast. And by the end of the broadcast, he shot me a message that said, "Oh, by the way, here's your website. You need one." Thank you. Wes takes care of me in a lot of ways, I'll tell you. And, we
Is that
go
website
to,
handmade?
yes,
It is.
handmade.
Yes,
All right.
I arrange those
Just
bits
checking.
and bytes by hand. Thank you very much.
Well, you can find all of our own individual work at geekbuilders.net, geeksmithing.com, Asylum Designs on Instagram, Thingiverse, and Twitter, and thepiworkshop.com. And Andy, man, thank you so much for coming to hang out with us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. It's good seeing you again, man.
Dudes, it was a ball. Anytime, any place. It's fun.
Maker Faire.
Absolutely.
It is.
Thank you, man.
Ooh. So, guys, I think we're going to have to round out this month, man. We're, what, 3 for 3? The last 3
Yeah.
weeks we got to...
That's right.
Making
Man.
Geeks Month of Makers.
I know, this is great. Maybe
I'm
we
gonna
should
have to write that
have
down.
all of the past 3 on the next one,
Boom.
There it is.
and we'll just be quiet. We'll just let them all talk.
Maybe we'll do the next
We'll bring
the,
people together.
the final
I'll
one
let somebody
live or
else edit that
something.
one.
You guys want to maybe try a live one again? That was fun.
Yeah, we can do that.
See what we can do.
We'll have to remember this next year too, so it can be the annual Making Geeks Month of Makers.
It should be in May to make it more.
It should be a March. Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to
September, the
elaborate.
month of May.
Well,
We are
Makers.
March Madness.
We had no idea we were doing this anyway, so we can move it a month and just say the second annual.
The Mighty Morphin.
The official first annual, second annual Makers Month of. Blah, blah, blah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. You can hang out with us every Saturday on your podcasting player of choice. You can go on
On
iTunes
your-
and leave us a review.
On your new $1,000 iPhone.
Okay.
Hey, I'm not geeking out about $1,000 iPhone. That is ludicrous. But anyway, yeah, on Google Play, podcast.net at GeoCities, wherever you get your podcasts, you can go find us there.
Angelfire.com.
AOL.
Download us off Kaza if you want. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, we should host on there. Yeah.
Wow.
Should.
LimeWire.
Well, everybody, we hope you have a fantastic week.
See you guys.
Night, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Take care, folks.
Thank-